Hello everyone, today I want to talk about BulletTrain. This is an open source Rails SaaS framework, so a good way to start your business. Because it's open source, it means you can use it for free with an asterisk. There is a pro version, which if we scroll down past all of the free features, does include the subscription for Stripe billing and whatever this action models thing is. Now the Stripe billing subscription, I'm just going to cover this up front so you don't waste your time. Come over here to this page. The Stripe checkout says the Stripe specifically is $350 per year, and I believe the action model requires you to purchase the entire Pro BulletTrain bundle, whatever, which does include Stripe, but this is $550 per year. So just be aware of that. It is free, but there is an asterisk there, so you will have to spend money if you want to use their built-in, Stripe billing. But okay, what does this actually look like? I'll just come over here and open up the demo real quick. I'm actually signed in already, so let me log out and let me go back over to the demo. I'll click sign up. I'll do dean@test.com with a password of password. You can see it's telling me this is a top 10 frequently used password. I'm gonna hit enter anyways. Do another name here, and I'll use a team name that already exists. So I've joined this team. If I come over here to the team dropdown, I can go over to team members, and you can see, I guess the team doesn't actually exist yet. I probably used a different name when I signed up the first time, but you get the idea. We have a account over here. We can add new team members. We can add a new team. We can add a new creative concept. We'll cover what this means in a minute. There's also integrations, again, for Stripe billing. There's API and webhooks built out of the box. So your API and your webhooks will be created whenever you run these generators, depending on what you're doing. All of that stuff's handled for you to an extent. And yeah, so this is all pretty easy. I've also tested this with like adding Google OAuth or whatever. It's a total of, and I'm not kidding here, it is 4 commands. Now they are lengthy commands, but the generator tells you pretty much what to type, and then you just copy and paste it. You have to add in your secret and your client key. But aside from that, it's pretty simple. So even adding, features that would be pretty difficult to do by yourself, the generators do handle a lot of that for you. But okay, how do we actually use this? Now that I've given you this rough little demo here, if we come back to the actual page, we can go over to clone the starter repository right here. And then if we scroll down here, it'll give us a bunch of commands to run. So we just start with the first command here. We copy this, we paste it in here, and then we change the project name here to, I don't know, we'll just call this video. And then we can go ahead and run this. I'll say yes, and this will just clone real fast. And now we can CD into our video. If we want to, we can open this up with a code dot real quick, just so you can see what this looks like. So I'll move this over here, and I'll go ahead and close this. So here you can see all of the files. Looks just like a regular Rails app. We can come into the gem file, and you can see all of the gems that it uses. Now, one point here that does differentiate it from like Jumpstart Pro or Jumpstart is there's a lot of gems being used here. I think Jumpstart, from what I understand, I might be butchering this, but I think they prefer to use fewer gems and build out the features themselves, which makes it a little bit smoother to use. Remember, the more dependencies you have, the more things can go wrong from those dependencies, which can be an issue. So that's just something to be aware of. No hard feelings against what BulletTrain's doing here. I just want to be transparent about what I've learned over time. But okay, we've now cloned the repository. Let's go ahead and let's set it up. First step is to run a bin configure. This will do a little bit of setup, and then it's going to ask us if we have Homebrew installed on this machine. I'm not using a Mac, so I don't. So then it's saying, do you want to proceed without Homebrew? So I say yes. And then it's going to tell me that I have an outdated node here, but I can proceed anyways. I'll say yes. And now it's asking me if I want to use a GitHub account, or a GitHub repo. For this, I can go over to github.new. which will take me right here. It's going to mess up a bit here, and it's going to take me to, I think it takes me to github.com/new, and it also opens 2 tabs each time, which I don't know why that happens, but you can just go over to github.new, or github.com/new right here, and then this will take me to, let's say, BulletTrain video. Let's go with that. We can go over here and click create repository. It's asking for the SSH path, so we're going to come down here, click on SSH, and then click copy. Paste it in here, and then we can hit enter. This will push it up, and now if I come over here and I refresh, it should already be pushed up. So you have your own branch of this code right here with the exact same README and everything else. So that's pretty cool. We now have this in our repo. Now it's asking me for the name of our app. I'm going to go ahead and call this like the BulletTrain video tutorial. Long name, but it works. Okay, so that takes care of the configure. We do now need to do our setup. So we'll do bin/setup. This will take another minute or two to run. And then we can go ahead and we can take a look at some of the stuff that's in here. Now, the main thing that I usually do whenever I see a new Rails app is I come into our config and our routes.rb. So in our routes.rb, we can see a couple things. One, it uses the drawing of routes, which we've covered before, to add additional routes here. So it kind of cleans up this entire routes file by grabbing stuff from the concerns and the devise and the sidekick. And if you come over here into your config and your routes, that's where all of these things live. So if you want to look at devise, you can see right here, this is what devise is doing. So it's overriding the registrations and the sessions controller, and it also has the OmniAuth callbacks controller, which is what you're going to use when you try to set up like Google to log in. You also have the scope here for the users. Now, if we come over to BulletTrain, we can actually come up to, I think the dropdown should have the documentation link. We'll come in here. I'm going to zoom out a bit just so we can actually see the sidebar. Because now that we've done this, let's go ahead and let's try to generate something. So we've effectively finished the setup. It's just going to tell us to run a bin/dev, which we can just do real quick if you want to see this. Let me go ahead and do this, bin/dev, and then we can come over to localhost port 3000, and I'll move this over here. So this is going to be using like the ES build setup with Foreman, the proc file, and all that. So this does spin up quite a few processes. So it is going to take a second every time you go to start your server. But eventually, if Brave decides to behave itself, you'll get to the sign in page. Now in my case, I can't sign in. I don't have an account. So I'm going to click on don't have an account. And then here I can enter my email, say dean@example.com with a password of password. We get that same error saying this is a top 10 common password. I'll click sign up anyways. I'll go ahead and enter my information, and then I'll use, I'll close this, and then I'll use Deanin as the team name, and we can click next. And this will work just fine. So again, we have the creative concept thing here. This does take you to the docs page if you click on this, which is going to tell you how to use the super scaffolding, because that's sort of what this is. But if we add a new creative concept, we can say test and case, click create. You can see the creative concept was created here. So they have this idea of like tangible things, and then the ability to add new collaborators if you want to. And these are concepts that you'll probably learn as you read through this README. Because there's an idea of tangible, and I forget what the other one is. Maybe it's abstract, but it's just different ways how they break up some of their logic. But for now, let's take a look at the super scaffolding, because this is probably the thing you care about the most. So basically what you're allowed to do here is you can run the bin/super scaffold. So I'll just do real quick, stop the server, Control L. If you run bin/super scaffold, it'll show you a couple different generators. Now, the main ones you're going to be using are CRUD, which allows you to create like your CRUD actions. So create, read, update, destroy. CRUD field allows you to add a additional field. So think of this like if you, I don't know, you have a post model for your blogs, you add a view counter. You can then add a CRUD field for the view counter, because all of these super scaffolds are going to run after you create the model. So you create the model first, then you run this. So let's say you add a new field to your model, you then run a super scaffold to just scaffold out like an additional input field for your integer view counter or whatever, right? You then have a join model, self-explanatory. OAuth provider is what I used for the Google account login button. And then you have incoming webhooks, because things like Stripe might send you webhooks. You need to listen for those. We've covered webhooks before on the channel. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a model, run a super scaffold generator, and then we'll create like a basic Rails controller, just like we usually do, to create like the front end, like public version of it. Because for me personally, I haven't been able to get the public namespace to work. So let's start with the model. Let's say Rails G model. We'll create a blog model. We need to give it a team : references, because remember, all of these things in here are going to be associated with a team. So in this case, it's the team of Deanin is what my user account belongs to. So we just straight up go to the team in this case, instead of like the user. And then we can just say this has a title of type string, and it has a body of type text. I'm going to try this without the body, because I have a theory that it'll work without the body. But we're going to go ahead and try this and see what happens. This is just going to generate a basic model. Now there is a thing that tells you not to run your migrations before you run your super scaffolds because sometimes it changes the migrations. So let's go ahead and let's run a bin/super dash, and then I'll hit tab to autocomplete this. And then we can say, all right, we need to do CRUD because we're trying to create the entire create, read, update, destroy thing for this blog, for a blog. And then we have to tell it, how does this tie back to the main like ideas of the application? So in this case, the parent is the team, right? So a blog is going to belong to a team. Team is anchored in the app, which allows us to, tell it to sit in the sidebar or whatever if we want to go that route. Because it has like this neat little stop the server, so I can't show you. As a sidebar, it'll ask you if you want to add it to the sidebar, and it can do that because it knows whose team this will belong to or whatever. But okay, now let's do the title. And remember, before we put in a string, now we're not doing that anymore because this is specifically what the view is going to look like. So although it's a string, whenever you have like a form in Rails, that is of course going to be a text field. So we're going to do that. And now we're going to try adding a body, but this again can't just be text. It needs to be whatever that would be. So like a text area, I think. But we also have the tricks editor, and we're going to go ahead and try this and see if this works. And hit enter and just run this real quick, and we'll see what happens here. Remember, I didn't add the body to the model itself, but we can see right here, do you want to add this to the sidebar menu? You can also see models that are scoped directly off a team are eligible to be added to the sidebar. So I'm going to say yes, add it to the sidebar. And now it's saying, great, there's a default icon of a gift icon, but if you hit enter, I'll take you to a page where you can pick a different icon. Now again, probably because I'm in WSL and using Brave, this is not going to work. It's going to take me to this website right here, which doesn't quite work out of the box. So instead, I'm going to go to http:// and then whatever this is. This takes me to this Themify icons page, which isn't quite what I'm looking for here. So I'm going to go over to, I think it's this page, and I'll have a link to this in the video description. It's light.pinsupreme.com/icon_fonts_themify.html. It's kind of hard to read, but this is going to allow you to pick the icons that you want. So I'm going to go over here in my README, so I paste this in so you can actually read this, hopefully while I work on this. So here's your URL. Now this is going to allow you to pick and choose some icons. This doesn't quite work for me. So what I did is I just went in here, found an icon that I liked. I think I went with this thought bubble. You can see it says TI-thought when I like hover over it. So I just remember that TI-thought. I come over here and then I type in, it's going to be TI and then TI-thought. So it works a bit like Font Awesome, where it'd be like FA space FA-thought. Here it's just TI instead. We go ahead, we run this. This does what it needs to. And now it says, all right, you're good to go. So let's go ahead and let's run a bin/dev again to start our server. At this point, we're good to migrate our database because we've finished up, running the super scaffold generator or whatever. But okay, let's go ahead and let's try to go to localhost port 3000 again. And then after this, I'll show you how you can create like a front end version or like a public version for this stuff. So we'll click run pending migrations. That's good. And now we have the ability to add blog posts. We can say add a new blog post and say test and case, or we can even say like hello world. And then we can say I'm testing. Oops, I didn't mean to open that. I am testing. And then we can add an attachment. We'll click on the attachment button and we'll come over to my downloads and I'll just pick one of these Unsplash images. Let's go with this one. So we can add that. We can see this nice little Snapchat icon. We can click create blog post. The active storage attachment works in this overview right here. It doesn't flood your page. So it's working like a decent admin dashboard that supports, action text and active storage. So that's cool. But now we have this. So let's come back to like our blogs because we have this icon here with a neat little thought bubble. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to say, all right, we have this application. We are selling customers the ability to create custom content. So we're billing them so they can use our cool editor, which is just a tricks editor, but pretend with me. We have this cool editor with all these custom features. What I'd like to do is have them be able to make blog posts like this, which only their team can access. And then whatever, you add like a published Boolean or something to it later. It doesn't matter. We add that Boolean and then we say, all right, now I want to allow the world to see this instead. So how do we do this? Well, we can start. Let's just do a git add dot, git commit -m, and we'll say init commit. We can start by just saying, all right, we need to do a migration. We'll say Rails-G migration, add published to blog, and we'll say published is of type Boolean, right? Go ahead and run that. And that'll go ahead and do that. And now we can do a bin/super dash, and that'll be scaffold. We can do a crud dash field. And if we go ahead and we just hit enter here, this should hopefully tell us how to use the crud field. So right here it says crud field for the model with an attribute type. So let's go ahead and let's try that. Crud field for a blog with an attribute type. It was the, what was it? A published of type, I guess it would be, is it type Boolean or is it type checkmark? I don't know. We'll just try this. Say publish : Boolean, and we'll see what happens here. We get an error, no implicit conversion of nil into string. So I don't know what that error means. We're just going to go ahead and continue here and pretend that that actually worked. So let's go ahead and let's do a bin/dev to start our server and just see if everything blows up or not. Usually we can find out pretty quickly if we manage to mess everything up. But I'll come over here to localhost port 3000. I'll refresh the page. It asks me to run my pending migrations. Go ahead and do that. And now I'll come into our Hello World blog post, click on it, and I'll come in here and I'll click edit blog. And we can see in here that we have a title of Hello World, the body, and now we have the ability to choose publish. So I'll go ahead and say yes to published. And now we can see published is set to yes. So just like that, we've added this extra field. Not sure what that error was about. So let's do one more, and I'll just say add new blog. I'll say test1, ASDF. I'll leave this as published no. And then let's do one more so that we can have 2 published and 1 unpublished. And we'll just say this one should be published. So now we have 2 that should appear, right? 3 posts here, 2 are published, and this one we need to edit and say no, although it's not showing up when it's set to no, but whatever. Okay, so that's fine. How do we actually get this to appear for like all users now? Well, let's go ahead and let's stop our server. We'll do a Rails-G controller for our blog, and we'll say this has a index and a show action, just like that. You can go ahead and run that. We Control L, run a bin/dev again, because we should be done here. Let's come over here and let's come into our config. Oops, our config is going to be up here, config, and our routes.rb. Now we can optionally add like a new route here, where we can just draw something. So we can say like draw blog, right? And we can get rid of this. We can come up here to our routes, right click, new file, say blog.rb. This is really overkill for something like this, but you get the idea. So we're just going to do something similar. So in here, we'll just say resource for our blog. So we want like a, create and, or not create, we want an index and show for blog posts, right? So we want resources for our blogs, only the create and the show, right? So we can come over here, refresh. And now if we go over to /blog, should take us to a, or is it blogs, I guess? So we can see right here, we do have the blogs path. So let's come over to /blogs. And it's telling us uninitialized constant blogs controller. So let's come up here to our app, our controllers. Oh, we have a blog controller. So I'm gonna go ahead and change this to just singular blog because I forgot what I typed. We now come over to blog, and it's telling us we're missing a template here. This is where I started running into issues with their public generator. It's a pretty easy fix though. In the views, we have a layouts, and the layouts needs to have a file called public.html.erb. And in here, you can just do a yield tag if you want to, or alternatively, you can say something like this should have an HTML tag, wrap everything in an HTML, and then it should have a header or whatever, or a head. Close this. And then you want to have a body tag as well. Oops, body tag as well. Something like this, tab this over, save it. Now you have your missing template. So we're seeing the blog index. And at this point, it's just like a regular Rails app. Just to prove it to you, let's come into our controllers, a blog controller in our index. Let's say at blogs equals, and we want to grab blogs where published true, something like this. And we'll give this a second, published is true. And then down here, we can do grab blogs by ID, where published is true. So we only want to grab them if published is set to true, something like this. And we want to say if published is false, redirect to the root path, right? So we can do this. Nothing's going to change here, of course, but we now have this set up. Let's come over to our views, our blog, and our index page. We can just iterate through our at blogs.each2blog. Oops, .each2blog, and we can come down here and we can say title, body, end. We don't need the body here. What we can do instead is say this is a link to read more, and this will take us to the blog itself. Refresh the page. We can see each of the blog posts here. We'll click on read more. That takes us to the blog show page. Let's go into blog show real quick. And in here, what we want to do is instead of having the blog show, we just want to do the blog.title, although this should be at blog.title, I think. If we get here, so there's our hello world. And now let's do a div for the body, just like that. Go ahead and do this, and then we can come down here and close this div. Something like that. Refresh the page. Now we don't have content. This needs to be the body, and we want to change this to body as well. Refresh. So there's our body appearing on the page right there. And we can see the images in here. We do need to do the image processing gem. So let's come into our gem file real quick. There should be maybe image processing in here. Image processing right here, line 54. We'll go ahead and uncomment this. Stop the server, run a bundle command to install that gem. Should be pretty quick. We can do a bin, we can do a bin/dev once that's done. And then we should be good to test this out. But of course, this is going to take a second. There we go. Let's go ahead and let's do a bin/dev real quick. And that should start back up. And now we should hopefully see this image appear, assuming that was the only thing. Again, I haven't really tested this, but this should work now like we would expect it to in a regular Rails app with with action text. So there's our images. So that's working fine. We can go back to our blog. And as you can see, this works kind of like a admin panel now, where we have these things over in our dashboard or whatever. So let's go over to localhost port 3000. So this allows the paying people to do their cool content creation, and then everyone else to see it, depending on how you decide to set this up. But this is just the first part of this, right? Again, this tool has so many different things that it's really hard to do it justice in a single video. The teams and the authentication's all handled for you. There's an onboarding section. There's all of this stuff with Zapier integration, OAuth providers. This is going to be for all of your login and stuff to make it easier to get users to sign in. It's all really easy to do. So there will be future videos following up on this. I just wanted to cover, a basic setup, get you up and running, make you aware that this exists. So hopefully you got something out of this, and hopefully I will see you in the next video.